What other key people collaborated with Ed? Charlie Carr,
Um,
Boston, Massachusetts.
Clearly, Ed was the first person to start a Center for Independent Living, but there were pockets of um, activism that were going on in other parts of the country. Lex Frieden was very active in Texas. Max Starkloff was very active in Missouri. Fred Fay and Elmer Bartels and Charlie Carr were very active in Massachusetts. Chris Palamas. There were pockets going on. And there was something that happened, I think, that was the catalyst. And that was we had no money. We had no money. So we kept fighting for a federal law, a federal enabling language that would fund us. And Nixon, independent living was included in the Rehabilitation Act, and Nixon didn't, wouldn't embrace it. He didn't support it. So eventually it passed, and it was called Title VII. And there was a huge planning conference in 1978 down in Arlington, Virginia, which for me was my first recollection of a national movement. And all of these people from around the country came together. And I was just this little quiet 20-year-old off in a corner observing these powerful leaders from around the country. And I saw Ed Roberts for the first time holding court. And Ed held court. That's what he did. And people came up to Ed. But to Ed's left and right were people like Lex and Max and Bill Tainer and Ray Zanella and Fred and some others that were his equals, but not really his equals. And it was at that time that I saw a national movement of people that I could sit and talk with individually. And I did. And I was just this kid that was benefiting from their work. And I knew my place. And I sat quietly and I talked and asked. And I remember very clearly going over to Ed and saying, "Hey, Ed, I'm Charlie Carr from Massachusetts." And he says, "My telephone buddy, how are you?" And he, like Ed would do, he would introduce me. "Hey, this is my telephone buddy who lives in an institution." And he introduced me to Max and Lex and all the others. And the credibility of that introduction was phenomenal. So I, in 1978, at that conference, then saw that there was a national movement. Wade Blank wasn't, Ginny Laurie was more known to me than Wade Blank, a non-disabled woman who was the editor of the Toomey Gazette and the Rehabilitation Gazette, who really Ed and Max and others were very deferential to, because she was the pioneer of the post-polio movement, not Ed. So there was some really weird dynamics. And Big Joe, her husband, who was another character. So I don't know if that's a little bit of background that's helpful, but I didn't meet Wade until the early 80s. Wade Blank, who went on to found ADAPT. And as I understand it, Wade, it was a minister and embraced King's doctrine wholeheartedly and applied that to the, well, it wasn't ADAPT, well, it was ADAPT, only it was for another cause, which was public transportation.